Hey everyone, and welcome to my Procreate 4 demo for the piece I call Becky. Why Becky? I don't know, she just looked like a Becky. But anyways, instead of just jumping right into this piece, the first thing that we're actually going to talk about is canvas stuff. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions on the size of my canvas, and I usually just reply to that in the comments, but I thought it might be good to actually do a video on it. Also, a lot of people talk about the performance of the fat pencil and how it looks for them. You can see here I'm building a canvas that's 1000 pixels by 1500 pixels at 72 dpi. And you can see when I go to use the fat pencil, which I have here, it's just one of the 4 brushes that I mainly use, you can see that the resolution of the fat pencil comes out kind of chunky and thick and just kind of crappy, I guess you could say. I've had a lot of people comment and say that when they go to use the fat pencil, it looks weird for them. So here it is at sort of 0%, 50%, and 100%. You can see that it's not the greatest of resolution. It's really fuzzy along the edges. That's because this is at 72 dpi and it's a fairly small dimensions. You can see that even if I go in and try to sort of like refine it, when you get in tight, it actually sort of starts to fall apart on you. The canvases that I work at on almost everything is 8 inches by 12 inches, and that is at 300 dpi. So you can see me punching that in here just so that you guys can see it actually created instead of coming from one of my presets. And now you'll see when we set that fat pencil at 0, or here we go, that's better, that's closer, that's actually 0, and then we set it to about 50%, and then we set it to 100%. You can see that it's much smaller in general, which that's because the resolution is so much higher on here that you're going to be able to essentially pack more into it. So the fat pencil actually comes out cleaner looking when you use it in this way. So this is something that I recently identified when somebody asked me about it, and I realized that this could be why some people might be getting different results from the fat pencil than say what I get from it. So you can see that when we zoom out, it's much tighter, much cleaner. So these are the two that I normally work at, 8 inches by 12 inches at 300 dpi, and the other canvas size is just that sideways, 12 inches by 8 inches at 300 dpi. So let's go ahead and jump into this, which, as you can see, since it's in portrait, it is 8 inches by 12 inches at 300 dpi. Why do I use those dimensions? For no real reason. It just, that's how I ended up on them. I just sort of stumbled into them, and I sort of always use those as my starting point. So let's talk about the sketching process here. You can see that I did not end up at the same place as where I started. I ended up with a sort of hipster girl, and I started with the figure of like a big beefy dude. Then I moved into a full body of a chick here. What I was trying to do is just sort of, what kind of core body type do I really want to be messing around with? And then eventually I say, none of those, let's go for something different. So here you can see me building the core anatomy of what will end up being Becky. And I actually saved those other 2 body types for later. I'll probably use that dude one to do some sort of a warrior dude concept thing. But you can see here that I sort of just went straight for the general look of this chick. There's not much complexity to this. It's really just I did the core pose, and then I did the outfits based off of some reference of like fashionable ladies. And then I did a couple of faces there. You can see there was like a bright-eyed one, and then there was this one, which is what it ends up going with in the final. And so now we just start cleaning up these lines. I was actually very happy with the way the rough sketch came out because there wasn't a lot of me trying to solve it. I just sort of banged it out real quick. And so this was quite fun to then just go in and tighten up. And then I sort of knew that I wanted to keep the coloring simple on this one, since on the last thing that I did on this channel was that sort of rendered palooka. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more sort of fashion mag looking, to try and keep it really simple. And then on the video after this, I'm going to do something that sort of falls in between there somewhere. So it's going to have lines supporting a fairly simple shadow structure, and then as opposed to this, which is like no shadows at all. I realized that in the past I asked you guys if you wanted to see how I do circles, and I have yet to do that, so sorry about that. I will try to include something like that in the next, not the next one, but the next one. So right now this is just usual process. This is me using the fat pencil and cleaning everything up. Here's an interesting moment. So if you caught the time lapse of this on my Instagram channel, you'll see that I mess up this hand like 100 times. You can see me trying to figure out what the hell do I want this hand to be doing. She's got sort of a fist, like a light fist in the original rough, but then it just sort of looks like she's jogging, which really wasn't what I wanted to go for. And so I do this like hand like 100 times. I wasn't going to cut it out, but the thing that I liked about this being in here was that it shows, first of all, that, you know, we all screwed up all the time, or not all the time, we all screwed up sometimes, and two, you can see the frustration that I have in trying to solve this hand. I actually don't find that I struggle much with hands. Someone out there might disagree, but as far as drawing them, I have fun drawing them, so it's not that big of a deal. But on this one, it just was not working out for whatever reason. So you can see I abandon the hand and I just start moving on to other parts of this. And eventually I come back to it. I even then, once I sort of figure out what I want to do with it, I have a lot of problems with it, which you'll see when we return to it here in a minute. So here we're just doing the jeans, adding some details in the ripped jean shorts. I wanted to just do like some slightly different sort of line techniques to communicate some of the different materials in this one, just to have fun with it. So you can see the hat has implied some of the like ribbing that's on a winter hat. The jeans has a little bit more of a jean look to it than just using, say, the same line technique throughout the entire thing. It was just sort of having fun. The shirt that she has on, that she has sort of like falling off of her, is just complete bullshit. It's just like the cuffs, and then the rest of it's nonsense. So here we go with the hand. I'm going in there, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, something like this. Maybe she'll be holding the necklace that I roughed in the rough sketch. And then like, what am I going to do with this thumb? And you can see that I struggle with this goddamn thumb like 100 times here. And really this whole thing was just, I just wasn't feeling it, and I couldn't really get going what I wanted to get going. So eventually I end up with this. You can see here I throw in a note, this fucking thumb, because I was just so frustrated with it at this point. And then see, I even abandon the hand position and go back to, well, maybe something like a fist, but really that pose just looks so weird. She either looks like she's being precocious or she's jogging, and I didn't want either one of those. She's already fairly precocious as it is. So we get that done as the hand. There we go. I can live with that. So then when I go to do the other hand, I give her this fist, and even though it was fine and the positioning was great, it looked weird. It's like she's winding up to punch someone. And then I do like a limp wrist, and then I go into this, which is finally where we end up taking the other hand, which is just this like really relaxed hand. And I think in the final piece it ends up working out really fine. But when in the middle of doing that, you know, we usually draw dynamic poses like punching and clenched fists, or like a sort of dynamically relaxed hand, which is a really weird way to say it. But I wanted it to look just sort of like really naturally resting, and like it's not doing anything in particular. So it was kind of weird to do this awkward angle and an awkward hand pose, but I really like the way it ultimately came out. So now we're doing the cuff on the other side, finishing off the way that shirt sort of looks. Throw a thumb ring on, throw a ring on the other finger, and then I was like, oh yeah, I gotta get the necklace done. So I started to do the pendant, and then because this stuff isn't really done in a linear way, you know, like I do a doodle here for 15 minutes and then I do it for, 30 minutes here, I forget about the pendant and I just move into coloring it. So here we are doing the colors, very light colors overall. Everything's done in the ways that I've done it in the past. So a flat for the skin, and then like a blush layer, a multiplied eye shadow layer, lip layer. You know, it's all really standard. I didn't do much special across this. It's sort of just a very simplistic drawing. So we got just a little bit of shadow under the jawline and under the hair, just to push a little bit of that depth there. And then here's me just sort of giving a little bit of that washed out jean look black jean look. And then for the leggings, I actually did it in 2 layers. I put in the dark gray, then duplicated it, and then I erased away on the top layer right in the middle and lowered the opacity of the underside one, and that was how I sort of got the turning of the form of her thigh in the way that sort of nylons, you know, they show through, and where it's taut and where you're looking at it directly, and then as it sort of goes around the form, it gets denser. So that's how that was all done. This was all done just by hand drawing in the lines. I was considering just putting sort of like a pattern across it and making it really flat. It is somewhat flat still, but I ended up hand drawing the plaid, the pseudo plaid. So now here I'm just going in and doing a bunch of texture stuff, making sure that the wall behind her looks like it's got texture on it, but then I also sort of damage everything else on top a little bit. I did some stuff where I duplicated her form and made it like a yellow color just to give it this sort of like outliney thing. I then I remember the necklace, and I go in and painted the necklace, but then I realized it does need some line support, so I went back in and threw that. So then at the very end I threw in some atmosphere and some rim lighting, which I originally wasn't going to do, and I just sort of liked the way that looked, so I kept it like that. So it's really simple, really. I just wanted to make sure I did a video so we could talk about the canvas and talk about the piece in general. So I hope you dig it. And I want to also thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. And next time, we have a bit of a spooky one for Halloween. So I hope you'll dig that. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.